Hi, if you're watching this video, it means you're almost ready to start marking work with MarkMate. You've set up your classes, you've set up your grade sets. Now we're going to look at how to create a piece of work that you've done with your students that you'd like to mark and leave feedback for. Now, it's important to understand that MarkMate is designed to be used day to day with almost any piece of work you can imagine, be it homework, formal assessments, day-to-day in-class work, remote work, home learning. Even we've had PE teachers in the hall using MarkMate for practical lessons. Anything that you want to record evidence for your students can be done in MarkMate. Now, what I'm going to show you today is a very basic example of a piece of work that you might be marking with MarkMate. And I'm obviously showing you this from my computer screen. It's worth mentioning at this point that once you've got everything set up, you can download MarkMate, our mobile app, onto your phone, iPad, tablet, whatever. Just search the App Store or the Play Store for MarkMate. And everything I'm about to show you from this point onwards can also be done from your phone. So let's get started. I've logged in and I'm looking at my classes. Now let's imagine today I've done a piece of English work that I want to mark. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on my 5JH English. And what we're looking at here is a blank screen because we haven't got any pieces of work that we've marked. We haven't started yet. The first thing we need to do is actually set up the piece of work in MarkMate. And we're going to do that by clicking New Piece of Work at the top here. This is your kind of go-to button every time you come in to create new pieces of work. And now what we need to do is set up the piece of work. So before we do, we can also set up something called a unit of work. Now this is a really good way of grouping your pieces of work or your evidence or your feedback, whatever it is you're kind of doing in MarkMate, grouping it into folders or into units, into topics, into groups, whatever. So for example, the piece of work that I'm marking today was a formal piece of writing that we've been doing as part of a narrative writing unit. So I'm actually going to create that unit of work first. I'm going to add narrative writing and I'm going to put term 1 so that I recognize that that's pieces of work that was done in term 1. So if I click add new unit, I can add another one if I wanted to. And then I'm going to save my changes. And now I can actually select narrative writing from there. So that means every time I mark a piece of work to do with narrative writing in term 1, I can assign it to this unit. It could be a piece of homework that I set that relates to this unit. It will be automatically linked to this unit. So let's look at the piece of work that I'm marking today. This is a bit of class work that I've marked. And if we imagine that we've started looking at using descriptive language in our writing and in our narrative writing, and this is like day 3, and we've finally got a paragraph of writing in their books that I want to actually mark and assess and give feedback for. So I'm going to set up that piece of work and I'm going to call it first paragraph of writing. Something as simple as that. And this is how I'm going to recognize it. You can call it the title of the piece of work. You can put today's learning objective, whatever you want. The next thing we need to look at is what we call assessment objectives. Now these are basically the specific things in this piece of work that I want to either give a grading for, give a score for, or give a comment for. So this could be a comment for the student to read or a comment for me, like a note that I want to make about that student's work. So to give you an example, I'm reading this piece of writing and I want to assess a couple of things that I know I've taught in previous lessons. So the first one, I know I've done a lesson on using descriptive language. So I'm literally just going to put use of descriptive language. That's what I'm going to be looking for when I mark this work and when I'm reading this work. Also, I know we did one lesson on different types of sentence punctuation. So I'm going to put that in as well. Use of sentence punctuation. You don't have to be as detailed as this. This could be a paper that you're marking, a maths paper, and it could just be paper 1. And then your assessment objectives could be question 1, question 2, question 3. It's basically splitting the work up into sections. It could even be, if you're marking a long essay, 5 or 6 pages, it could just be page 1, page 2, page 3. Or if you're in a practical PE lesson, it could be use of space, original movements, whatever it is you're looking for. Now, the last thing that we need to set up is our grade sets. Now, we made these in the previous video. The grade sets are how are you actually going to assess that particular objective. So if I select grade set here, I can either choose one of the grade sets that I've already created, formal Key Stage 2 grades, that's my sort of exceeding secure vocabulary, or I can select what we set up as an informal RAG grading, red, amber, green, above average, average, below. I can even, if I wanted to, select a score and say that actually for this particular area, it's out of 10 or out of 20. But what I'm going to do is select my grades for this particular assessment, use of descriptive language and use of sentence punctuation. I'm going to set up my formal Key Stage 2 grades there. Now, even if this is not a formal piece of work that I'm marking, it's incredibly helpful for me as a teacher to even just give a teacher judgment for those particular areas. It means that when I'm marking and giving my comments and my grades for this, I'm collecting that data. And I can log back in at any time, tomorrow, next week, next term, at the end of the year, report writing, anything at all. And every piece of work that I've done with my students is recorded for me. So even if this is not a formal piece of work, it's really handy to set up those individual assessment objectives so that when I come back to look at this, I've got the piece of work, but then I've got real kind of clear, detailed areas of that piece of work. So the last thing to do, once we're happy with that, we've got the piece of work that we're marking and the particular areas that we're going to be looking at, the last thing to do is literally just click Save Work. And once we click that button, we'll be taken through to the marking screen where we can actually start marking our students and giving them their feedback. Now in the next video, I'm going to start explaining how we give that feedback and how we actually have that feedback delivered to the students. If you need anything at any point during your time with us, don't forget to drop us an email at info@markmate.co.uk. Tune into the next video where you'll see how we start giving feedback and what we can do on that marking page. All the best.